Good afternoon, everyone. I am Cheshta Dora, Head of Research, Content and Community at People Matters, and I'm glad to be hosting this webinar for all of you today on a super interesting topic, driving productivity through AI in Southeast Asia. Need of the hour, right? But before we start, I would love to know where you all are joining from. So go ahead and type in the cities and countries you're joining us from. Great. Thank you again for joining us today. Now, improving workforce productivity, as we see, is central to helping businesses thrive during a period of rapid change. People Matters SHRPA Research Report 2024 that we published this July for Southeast Asia found that for 9 out of 10 HR and business leaders in Southeast Asia today, enhancing and maintaining high employee productivity is critical, high impact challenge. Now, addressing this challenge will be key to ensuring business growth in 2025 for sure. Interestingly, the SHRPA report also finds that across Southeast Asia, around 42% of these leaders said that leveraging AI will be critical to assisting companies to thrive in the next 12 to 18 months. Now, while productivity today is impacted by different factors like experience, skill, engagement, AI does present a unique opportunity for HR leaders across this region to overcome challenges and improve current conditions. The promises of AI in reinventing skilling, performance, and experience and overall productivities are immense. And 2025 will see HR leaders turning to technology to help them address these productivity gaps. Yet with all of these possibilities, HR leaders do face challenges, both implementation and an impact to truly leverage AI's potential to enhance productivity. So with that, what's in it for you today? In this webinar, we're going to bring together talent experts, advisors, and leaders to further explore strategies and action plans for HR leaders and HR technology leaders across Southeast Asia to navigate these shifts in the HR landscape. Built on the findings of Asia Pacific's most comprehensive research, the discussion will offer a closer look into the insights and solutions that prepare HR leaders to enhance productivity through artificial intelligence for the successful 2025. Now, for this, we have eminent industry experts joining us today. And the first one is Michelle Yong, Global HR Consultant at Shell. Hey, Michelle, good afternoon. A very warm welcome.
Thank you.
A little bit about Michelle here. Michelle has over 15 years of experience in HR in various Fortune 500 companies, including Accenture, Mondelez International, British American Tobacco, and BP. She specializes in organizational transformation, talent development, and change management. Currently, she's an in-house HR consultant at Shell. Michelle has significantly enhanced her personal productivity through AI tools, particularly in workflow and process automation. She's also engaged with market leaders to discuss the true value of AI advancements in the HR workflows, and we'll be looking forward to hearing more from her today.
Pleasure's mine.
Lovely. And our second guest is Alexander Boe, Head of People and Operations at Telenor.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Alexander. Thank you for joining us today. A bit about Alexander here. He's an HR leader with a versatile background and specialization and generalist roles across various operating companies and corporate environments. He has worked in multiple geographies, gaining him a valuable insight into trends and practices in the workforce, ways of organizing, and employee matters perspectives. A very warm welcome again to both of you, and I'm excited to delve deeper into this important discussion with both of you today.
Well, thank you. The pleasure is ours, I think.
Great. So without further ado, let's start with our first question. But before that, I would like to remind to our listeners here, we will be hearing our industry leaders' responses here. Alexander and Michelle, would love for you to also keep sending in your questions, your responses that you would love to hear from further from both of our speakers here. and we'll try to take in as many questions as we can. Great. All right, so on to with our first question here. Across Southeast Asia, Sherpa report notes that 53% of companies are dissatisfied with their ability to enhance productivity through advanced AI and end-to-end analytics that organizations should use. So what are some of the major barriers that you see that are behind this dissatisfaction in HR effectiveness? Alexander, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I think for me, it starts even before AI. I think analytics has been difficult in HR for different reasons. I think we've had, I don't think necessarily the most numerical strong people has joined HR. So I think sort of the competency had to be built a lot in HR departments. I think sort of we've had human capital systems, we've had applicant tracking system, we have all our data sources has not been built for doing analytics. So the data structures, the data utilization has been difficult. So I think it sort of starts way back that we don't have a great track record on doing analytics. Personally, I remember I joined my current employer, and then one of the statements was made that we have decided not to do HR analytics. And my reaction was, I don't think it's something you choose or don't choose. It's there whether you like it or not. And I think some of that carries forward into AI. Of course, if you had, and many companies have, been good at HR analytics, building the right data, right structures, right processes, right workflows, then I think your sort of productivity gain through implementation of AI is higher. If you have struggled with all of this, I think AI to some extent is going to just complicate things further, and you have a longer way to go to close the gap, but nevertheless very important to close that gap. I think that would be my initial reflections on why many struggle on AI, and then there's probably also more elements, but it's a new tool, it's a new technology, at least mainstream. So are we failing? I think it's too early to say, but we are acknowledging that a lot of people are struggling, and I think the report is saying the same.
Right, that's so true. As you said, it's been hard to implement fully in HR, but it's not there for leaders to choose. It's there, it's now, it's not in the future, and we need to kind of find a way to implement it. Yes. Michelle, anything on this? You've heard or seen so far?
Yeah, I think there's if you've seen quite a number of even the big four consulting firms, they've also ventured into researching into AI, right? And I think the boom was when OpenAI started this ChatGPT, and then you see people using it. So the average individuals, you and I, are using it. So the access basically to AI is now widened. You know, those days probably limited to a certain group of people. I feel personally that is the challenge is the understanding of how can we use AI work. Yeah, so I think that's the ability for HR leaders to know this is a tool. That's one, right? But even more clarity on understanding your current function, your role in the play, what are the areas that will be enabled by this AI and analytics versus just jumping the gun. Oh, I have AI, let's try to analyze, right? Let's try to do better analytics. But actually, we failed from the very onset to really understand, oh, how do we bring value within the organization? And as such, how will AI be a tool that helps us?
Right, Michelle. I think very well put here, and that brings me to my follow-up question here on really understanding the value of it and how we in our context of work can derive value, the most value out of it. And that is, I think, different for different individual, different for different organization. We've also seen 9 in 10 companies highlighted improving productivity remained a challenge in Southeast Asia. So given like you mentioned how the nature of work and workforce dynamics are evolving in this region, Delving deeper into some of the strategies or solutions here, what are some of those that HR leaders you think can implement to rethink how they can enhance productivity?
So I'll probably take this question, and Alex, feel free to add in, right? I think we need to rethink how we define productivity today. And earlier, Alexander was also sharing on the use of AI. Is it really productivity or actually improving efficiencies? I think on the side talk that we were having earlier much on. But the past productivity, if you look at, just Google it, it's like a number of output per input, right? So how many can one individual produce? That's how we've always measured productivity. I think one important thing is to say, hey, let's move from outputs to outcomes, right? Are we here as HR to drive, say, employee engagement score? Are we here to improve, team capability in relation to AI? And as a result, drives 20% additional sales. So I think having clarity on and redefine what productivity means is really critical, because AI will blur productivity. So I'll just share a simple example today. I think a lot of people, or let's say in my case, I do a lot of sort of a bit of manual work, right? Let's say I'm going to send letters, I'm going to send and to 100 line managers, right? In the past, I probably use mail merge or manual to mail merge, a simple from Excel, you mail merge and then you send it out. But then you have this macro Excel, right? That could also develop auto send once you click certain buttons or so. Right, I don't know any coding, so my reliance on ChatGPT today, as an example, to build that code and help me send it in 30 minutes versus in the past I'll probably do it in 2-3 hours. So to that point, Alex, efficiency has been driven, right? But am I being measured on how many letters I'm being sent? 200, 300, 400, right? So I think that clarity needs to be in place. Hence, I think if you want to rethink productivity, first define what productivity means, and whether you're doing it for the organization or within HR itself. I say number one, think about what are the areas of that the company is focused on, right? If you're a service industry, is it about customer satisfaction? If it's about you are doing manufacturing, is it about number of products that you deliver, right, per month, or you produce per month? So knowing your top line, I think that's clear, because that's where if I'm really very efficient here in terms of economies of scale, where else can I sort of embark on? So that's one, right? Knowing the business context or your team, your organization. Look at top line and see how AI can increase productivity in the sense that it doubles or triples your outcome, right? In terms of that focus. I think number two is presence of AI will help a lot more of the lower performers, if you ask me. So in the past, maybe your lower performers are unable to craft an email, they don't write well, they can't they can't do analytics as fast, right? But today, your lower performers can have access to the data, right? If you have an AI being implemented in your tool, they upload it, they then can see much quicker. So the analytics are being done much quicker. So the lower performers will be able to level themselves up to the high performance you have in your organizations today, which are deemed fast, but AI would have helped your lower tier performance to go up. So I would say look into areas where it's just generally tasks that are not being able to perform consistently by your lower group of performers. Those are tasks potentially can be improved through AI, and hence your productivity will improve. So I think that's the second piece. And I think the last piece is looking at areas where it's just generally more difficult to hire. So I know those present here, if you own shared services, right, and you support a call, or let's say a call center, you have a call center, you support a region, and you have to hire Mandarin speakers, European speakers, Spanish, etc. Now, these are very scarce and expensive talent to hire in the past, and you always have to offer premium to get them in. Today, AI may be a solution, right, where they can help you interpret, and instead of having the constant challenge on talent pipeline, you would use AI to address some of the hiring challenges, but then you retain a few lesser people with those skills, because you still want that governance and vet through until AI is fully mature and able to perform those on their own. So those are probably few things we can rethink about productivity in the different lenses, right? And then apply it from there. Yeah.
Right, Michelle. I think it's a great point, and I think the three strategies you've highlighted also kind of cover most of the employee life cycles. And I really love the prerequisites, especially you mentioned, and Alexander also mentioned it in the prior to our conversation, that redefining what productivity looks like for your organization in context of utilizing or leveraging AI, and like really identifying those areas you want to focus on to impact the top line eventually. Alex, do you have any other thoughts, any practices that you have incorporated and you've seen your peers incorporating it and would like to share?
So I think Michelle covers a lot of good points. I want to pick up a bit on this sort of efficiency and productivity dilemma, in a way that you have, of course, productivity being able to produce more with the same, efficiency being able to produce the same with less. And I think, unfortunately, in a way, that the case on AI today for HR departments, but maybe for business leaders in general, has been much more on the cost and the efficiency side than the productivity side. So yes, you're able to send more emails, you're able to answer more calls, you're able to do kind of these type of things, while sort of cases for growth, innovation, service, these something has been much more difficult. And maybe it's a fine evolution. You take the low-hanging fruits, and then you move on to the more kind of noble and value-creating activities. But I think it's sort of lingo-wise and mentality-wise important for HR leaders and tech providers and others to kind of keep the terminology right. So we actually set the right targets and ambitions for whatever we're trying to do out of investments and implementations. If you're hoping for productivity and you get efficiency, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed, although you've gotten something great, or vice versa. Then I think your question on sort of the practice in implementation, I think we see sort of shift. So I thought you made an interesting reflection on low performers. I didn't think of it in that dimension, but I think what we see is how it's sort of a lot of these roles where you're hired for excellency, the ability to do the same job with perfection over and over again. Those are probably the most prone for AI. So we see sort of the skill set from excellency to be able to problem solve is moving. And I see sort of the departments in our portfolio companies, I see sort of companies shifting more and more towards kind of the problem solving type of roles. And I don't think we should chime of it, because you train excellence from elementary school to university into that's maybe how you made your career, and then all of a sudden that is not your main KPI anymore. So I think that shift on becoming our own kind of CHROs or HR leaders and be those problem solvers, I think that's a massive challenge that I think many companies will face, and I see it in Telenor today. So yeah, it requires our employees to be able to strategize better. It requires them to be able to sort of make action plans better, implement better, manage stakeholders differently. So that is kind of a bit of the change we see, at least from my side.
Right, very well put. And Alexander, as you mentioned briefly about managing stakeholders as well, we have two audience questions which they also feel are like the big barriers in terms of changing mindset, a mindset related question on leveraging AI, and also getting a buy-in of your leaders early on. How can we get top management to understand AI is the right way to go? And another question is, in terms of how can we convince the reluctant HR practitioners to start testing AI tools themselves and, utilizing it? How do you change that mindset? Apart from the areas that you've already highlighted, the strategies, anything else that comes at the top of your mind to share that with our listeners?
So I think it was multiple questions there, but I think let me pick up the one on how to get everybody to use it. I think that's an interesting one. We've had a bit of the same discussion in my company. Is it really the ambition though? I think typically when we implement some sort of technology or some sort of new software, it's very sort of, this is how we're going to use it, this is your process, this is the best practice applications. We get consultants in and they will tell us what the best practice is. For me, AI is different. I don't think I ever had a technology implementation as loose as AI in our company. It's different. The very sort of trade-specific AIs are probably a bit more standardized, but if you take the general AI tools for all employees, we've introduced it extremely loose. Here's your license. Go around. Have fun with it. See what brings value. Then we see that means you get a very, very different adoption. You get non-adopters that are just sort of not using the license. And then you get sort of super champions that just want to do more and more and is pushing, and you feel that 90% of the work you see from them is AI generated. And then you have probably sort of middle ground. My team, I don't think my team members my direct reports are using AI the same. I think they're using it differently. And it's been a conscious decision for me, at least with AI being an immature technology, to just let it be much more organically implemented than the rest. Then where do we stand 5-10 years down the line? Well, I think the ones that has adopted AI has probably increased their market value, and those not might face some sort of challenges in their job. But let's cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm not worried at time being.
That's great. That's good to know. I want to zoom out a little bit here, Alexander and Michelle, and put a focus on something else that's also very crucially important and tangentially, or maybe directly related to also ensuring productivity. And we want to talk about it in context of AI here. Now, we see skills play a major role in ensuring workforce productivity. So in your view, how can AI help improve upskilling efforts in the organizations across SCA, and how do you suggest companies ensure a smooth implementation of AI in their upskilling and reskilling programs?
I struggle with this one. You'll go first, Michelle.
Yeah, that's fine. So when you talk about, I think if you saying, and Cheshta, if I hear you correctly, I think what you're saying is that it's a learner's journey and how AI can help a learner's journey in terms of upskilling also in AI, in the space of AI, right? So I think I've seen at least in universities, the blended learning today are very much hybrid, like they've already incorporated a lot of collaboration and using different tools and systems to drive AI. I think, and I'm not sure if those are AI, like for example, they use holograms, virtual reality per se, to sort of illustrate particular machinery in a ship where you don't really probably have an access to from a size of, say, a ship. So you probably see, I see this particular part of the machine, and it was a physical form that's being brought together. But today, with virtual reality, you basically able to access the entire ship and look at, oh, this is how the engine room looks like, and how these parts is in a particular place. And then the engineering students would learn how to fix this, and change it. And I've seen companies in a high-tech industry, the learning on safety is pretty much using sort of advanced technology to do virtual reality so that they can envision how it looks like in terms of, do I need to change this? Is this considered under maintenance, or this is considered good enough? So I've seen use cases on using technology, not sure if they are AI driven, but I think if you want to say how AI can definitely use this, so AI is a very broad term, right? But if you look at large language models, so those are where they learn and then they're able to create content. But in areas where you allow AI to learn a learner's journey, right? So let's say you put an AI across the three of us on the topic of, let's say, astronomy, as an example, or maybe rewards, something closer to HR, let's say rewards. By learning the conversations that they have with Alex, myself, or Chester, you, they would know what level of competency you have, and then direct a certain level of training that you need. Based on just really your conversation with it. So I think AI will increase personalization and you should use AI to help in the sense of that upskilling journey for me as well. Even say, oh, how do I then use AI to learn tools to do analytics, for example, right? So, okay, today I'm an Excel expert, macro. I really know data. I have clear data literacy, blah, blah, blah. And that's when AI will say, okay, then you need to learn this level. But if you're opening it to an entry level, the AI will say, oh, maybe you want to start with this. So just to give the application of AI in learning some of these tools that could help.
Yeah, that's super interesting, Michelle. I think you highlighted two really interesting points. That leveraging AI in the skilling programs help increase the personalization, of course, but they also help in a way that AI can really gauge and learn the learner's journey and start kind of suggesting the programs based on the pace that they want to learn. So let AI also help HR leaders and managers decide the pace at which their employees are able to and want to learn. So it's a matter of learning AI and learning with AI as well via AI. So Alexander, what are your thoughts on that? Would love to hear.
Yeah, no, I think a part of me is pessimistic, to be honest. And I think the report said something about the same. But that sort of the promise of personalized learning journeys has been there for a long time. It's been in our LMSs. And I think more has failed than delivered on that promise. And why is that? Well, probably a multitude of reasons. But I think it's partly been trying to connect very complicated data sets. So you need a title hierarchy, and you need a position hierarchy, and you need job families, you need job groups, and you need bands and levels in order to get your LMS to work. And I think sort of the sad reality is that on the same data set and the same data architecture, you will have the same problem on AI, actually. So that's the pessimistic side of me, that I still think we have as much groundwork to do to get the LMSs working properly with or without AI. Maybe a bit less. Maybe AI resolves some of it because it's not that binary. So to speak. The optimist in me is actually less worried about my role in a company and as an HR guy. It's more societal. I think it's similar to how sort of mobile data, 4G, empowered a lot of less privileged people to get access to knowledge and insight and information and markets and trends. And that has been extremely empowering. You know, if you go to some of our markets, Pakistan, Bangladesh, rural areas, it makes a huge difference. And I think to some extent, the same, I'm hoping for the same sort of AI that I think we can, if you don't have affordability, etc., to go to universities or do these things, I still think you can complete almost a bachelor degree or a master degree without attending a university, but by sort of the data and information that an AI collates and builds for you. So super excited on the personal front, and as a citizen of a wider society, as a professional, I'm still worried about our ability to kind of do mass upskilling in a personalized way.
All right. Yeah, I hope I'm sure our listeners resonated with the challenge that you highlighted, like real on-ground challenge. And we have some of the HR tech leaders listening to this challenge as well to, pivot there and direct their point solution strategy in that direction on solving to that challenge, especially. Thank you so much for kind of highlighting that. Narrowing it down a little bit further and getting deeper into upskilling for HR effectiveness, for HR teams, HR becoming HR for HR teams, a little bit further, Michelle and Alexander. A major gap that we've seen our research showed is around change management. And looking closely at the AI, some of the AI integrated talent initiatives, we saw that the skills, there are some of the skills HR also need to develop in order to be efficient, in order to be effective in leveraging AI in terms of, not just identifying the right HR technology, but implementing it as well and executing on those digital business transformation initiatives that HR is responsible for. So in context of that, what skills does HR in SEA need to develop to improve their ability to leverage the full potential of AI? And how can it further strengthen, change management to make AI implementation successful in their organizations?
Change management is always hard, and I think if I had a good fix to change management on a general basis, I would probably be quite wealthy by now. Does it get easier or worse implementing AI? I think it's a bit back to what we talked about earlier, that how sort of tight and structured do you do now procurement of AI tech, implementation, adaptation, application, execution. So of course, if you define it very tight, at least you're clearer on where you want to go with it, but you risk losing a lot of people along the way, and then you kind of come to the finish line with just a very small cohort of people. And maybe the use cases you thought when you started is actually not, or when you planned the implementation, is not the use cases you thought or actually materialized once the technology became available. So I know it's sort of a bit of a yes and no answer, but I think sort of how tight do we want the implementation to be? I think that impacts the ability to do change management. And I think there should be some room for sort of, let's call it, organic development of the project and not entirely being steered. And then I think on skill side, boring as it sounds, I think there's two levels of skills in a way. I think you need to grow your comfort with your working tools that you have already. I think you get more out of the AI if you're fully sort of depleting the existing tools you have, and then AI gives you something on top. I think that gives you much more, because a lot of the stuff, and I see that a little bit from colleagues, they are sort of super excited about they can do stuff on the AIs. I think Michelle mentioned an example of mass emailing automation, but you could also do that on all tools. So of course, not everything. I don't care if people are enhancing their productivity and efficiency through AI or other tools, but of course, knowing your core tools probably allows you to take more out of AI. Thirdly is the sort of this critical thinking. It is this problem-solving skills, moving away from executional abilities and more into the problem-solving abilities. I think I said it before. I'm not going to repeat it all, but I think that's maybe where I have a bit of a concern whether the readiness is where it should be, and it's also giving some issues into the change management.
Okay. That's good to know. Alexander, Michelle, any view you have on how HR teams can improve their HR effectiveness leveraging AI for a successful change management in their organization?
That's definitely, I think, a handful, right? Because so I would probably say there may be a bit more on the activity mining. So I think maybe first having your LT HR leadership team to prioritize AI adoption. So because their drive down would initial that. So I've just an example, in some of the organizations I see, what they do is they create this digital program. Then what they do is they got their leaders, so it's like, okay, I want 70% penetration, which means 70% of my workforce should finish this particular digital program, which covers data literacy, understanding data, understanding how AI tools can help, and then you learn a bit more on the digital space. So then one way they do it is the advocation of the leadership team to then take forward this. So they complete 100%. So their prioritization on AI adoption would definitely drive the mandate down. So I think that's one. I think number two, if you're looking at skills, so earlier I was talking about doing a bit of the activity mining. So first mindset, and then I think number two, having clarity around what sort of activities you want. And I think to Alexander's point of view, it's not about saying, just apply AI in wherever you want. If it helps you and then you just adopt it along the way, then the change is harder. But rather, hey, today I'm using Power BI to do HR, to tell me my turnover, to tell me, how many people moved and when do they move, female, male, etc. Right? So do we see AI coming into this space to say, okay, moving forward, instead of having a person sitting down and tell me what are the 3 quarterly insights from this data point, how will AI be able to generate that initial set of insights? Right? And then having a person who has macro context to do decision making, to know context of the organization, to say, I'm going to review these insights to say, did they miss out any information? And then present that forward based on strategy, etc. Because I think depends on what information you have the AI access to. And then the insights comes quite differently. So I think that's number 2. And third piece, for HR to sort of really improve their effectiveness is, I think some of you spoke about the mindset change, even though including those in the chat, is still having the fear of AI displacing them, especially at probably transactional level kind of roles. So it's important for leaders to be able to steer clear the direction of how jobs can change. So today it's not just about using AI anymore to say how to drive productivity, but actually how we work will change. And to Alexander's point, we must start today in terms of this human. So it's this industry 5.0 that they talk about, right? How do human and machines work together? In the next coming years, and learning to adopt. Today is just AI is still a tool that we need to prompt. Next thing you know is a humanoid sitting next to you and sort of telling you a lot of basic things that you used to do, and then you are taking that to the next level. So really breaking down that fear instead of feeling displaced. I think helping them to understand, okay, what you now need to do differently, your value to the organization is different. So then you upskill them in those areas: business decision making, problem solving, stakeholder management, relationship managers. So they work more on the personal touch sort of skills, whereas then technology will take care of more on the transactional or administrative sort of work. Yeah.
Right. I think in order to definitely effectively leverage AI, one of the things that cohesively we've been hearing from both of you is to learn more about problem solving, critical thinking skills, to learn how we can in future leverage AI in a way that can work and augment human work further and help employees and businesses not just understand that and slowly reinforce that idea as well. So that's one of the key things that we've kind of observed you saying about how to in improving HR's effectiveness in leveraging AI better for change management to ensure. Now we have an audience question in also evaluating effectiveness of the AI-driven HR tech solutions. So how can companies do that? Do you have any point of view on that we can briefly touch upon before our next question?
Well, the very unscientific answer is it's a feeling. You see it in the zone, you in the office zone, you see it in the work you get. So the unscientific side is definitely there. You will notice it. Then I think what metrics is? Well, I think you can, of course, define how many use cases are you able to come up with, and then you can start tracking them of how many of those use cases are you starting to sort of attack with the use of AI. You can, of course, measure time spent on, you define up your administrative. If you take the low-hanging fruit, which is administratively and routine tasks, how much time is being spent on that, and then you can sort of measure, are you able to reduce that time? So, but all of those KPIs are very similar to what we did on RPAs, on other type of automation projects. It's not sort of an AI KPI in itself. So I think sort of a mix of sort of the automation KPIs, and then it's a sort of feeling of, does this give us more? And then I think outside AI or outside HR are customer service agents using AI performing better, doing more upsales than the ones not using it. So I think on the workforce, you can probably play around with your KPIs a bit more. That would be my thinking.
Yeah. I think when it comes to identifying the solution or measuring the effectiveness of it, the adoption of it, and the implementation of AI tech solution, whatever it is, I think putting employees at the center of it is the best way to evaluate the platforms, not just for implementation, but adoption and measuring their outcomes for the whole organization is what I'm kind of taking away from Alexander here as well.
I think if I just sort of add to that, I think it's always easier to measure efficiency than it is to measure productivity. So do you go by the low-hanging fruit, or do you go with the productivity one? There's definitely more value in the productivity one.
Yeah. And I think just to add, sort of the unscientific too is also sometimes we also encourage, and today that's how we sort of drive sort of adoption, right? We get people who probably uses some of these chatbots or ChatGPT equivalent more, and you ask them how productive they are. Most of them are able to say, you know what, I've actually saved 30-40% of my time because I don't have to start everything from scratch. So and I get them to give me questions of asking so that they can do things in a much more structured manner. So then I think one way is to also ask how productive does the employee feel, after applying some of these AI solutions. I think that's one way. I think another way I was thinking, which is more outcome driven in terms of effectiveness of AI solutions, is once you have clarity around where you apply AI adoption for. So let's say, for example, as a simple in a call center sort of format, you apply AI to do interpretation of different language emails coming in and having this AI to respond, right? So your chatbot's no longer your standard keyword search and respond, but they personalize their answers and replying in the same language. I think one way, if that is the intent and the AI adoption, AI solution, when you put in, the outcome was improved customer satisfaction. Those are areas where you can see the effectiveness of the solution. One is how many, in a call center setting, in a different language, multilingual language, how can one AI solution help me address number of calls, number of requests, etc. And then you can measure customer satisfaction to know the effectiveness of the AI solution as a result. So if you use that thought process and sort of apply then within HR, which can be challenging at times because, like Alexander said, maybe more efficiency. So look at the tasks that you perform in terms of identifying errors, in terms of, and today maybe if you say AI, more forward-looking is probably in the space of generating baseline insights, writing leader guides, your job guides for managers to run performance management. So they will probably be able to drive that base. And as a result, me as an individual, do I also learn from it apart from so now, does it mean that HR no longer need to think, right? So if you put a HR executive, hey, now you're supposed to craft a performance management tool for your line managers, then they use this AI solution to help. And everyone would think, oh, does effectiveness means if I have the AI tool to do it, do I still need this HR executive to perform that task? And then equivalent to maybe reduction of costs because you have higher value added roles and lesser of the transactional value sort of roles. So coming back to your work would change in terms of how you do, and then how effective is your AI solution is then if you're tasked it to do more of the manual repetitive work, then its speed, its productivity and accuracy will be a way that you measure effectiveness. Yeah.
Great. Avi, thank you so much for responding to this question of our audience, Michelle and Alexander. Now, on to our last question here, and this is also my one of my favorite questions that we ask our industry experts. What are some of the predicted trends and challenges that you observe in AI-driven productivity strategies in the coming years, in the next 12 to 18 months, in 2025, 2026? And according to you, what advice do you give to HR leaders preparing for these future trends that they will have to navigate to ensure that they are well positioned to leverage AI? Michelle, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I think I like what Alexander mentioned. Like we've always have tools that help us do our job better over time, and of course today, in the form of artificial intelligence, that can generate content. The speed to learn is much faster, and the creation of output is much faster. But I think to his point is like the tools has always been around, right? But the challenge in accordance to I think his view on your LMS and is that complexity of the data. So I think the very first biggest challenge is data quality and data ubiquity, I think they say, because of the availability. So you first must have availability of data for AI to learn. One, that's accessibility to the data. But number two, the cleanliness, the simplicity, the way you architect your data framework, your policies. If you were going to load all your policies and expecting the chatbot to reply, but you actually uploaded 3 versions of the same policy that's been updated over 10 years. So how will your AI learn which is the latest and, respond accordingly? So I think number one is really aiming on ensuring data quality, accessibility, and governance, which means your security of such of these informations being shared. How do you protect them? So that's key challenge, I feel. Although and less talked about. I think a lot of us say, "Oh, let's talk about the big bang buzzword, apply AI and stuff like that," but they don't naturally come back to the core and say, "Do we have the right data for AI to learn, for machine learning to learn per se?" So I think that's challenge number one. And I think one of the things that the report also says on execution of change. So we built a lot of excitement around AI is coming, you should start adopting here and there. And then, of course, you have little digital nudges, or people would have run create your own ChatGPT where if your company do allow, so you start building that adoption. But the execution of change, I think, is critical because speed will be a challenge now, because everyone will say, I can do things half the time, so why have HR not picked up? So especially if investments have really taken place in the business arena, right? I think the speed to execution will be number two, because of the pressure of needing to drive adoption and upskilling of people. Why? Most of the time, you can buy the solution, but people upskilling is usually a laggard factor. So when I use that term, it takes 6 to 9 months for someone to learn something before they become effective. So your people will always be 6 to 9 months behind any new technologies that's being deployed. So the question is, are we able to basically take this forward much faster? That means being able to anticipate what technology is going to come next and then train your team to go with it. So I think those are basically what I see as challenges. And I think where HR can do better, I think one, look at policy really, work really well with your IT heads or departments to say, from an IT perspective, from a data security perspective, how do we establish the right key policies to enable a safe solution that you're going to deploy? Number two, on people, forget about acquiring because everyone else would, but focus on developing. So really upskilling and finding the right level of capabilities to build for your own team to pick up some of these technology advancements or skill sets, digital-driven skill sets. Basically platforms, right? Using the right data strategy, IT background to ensure that some of these are already available for the Gen AI solution to be effective on. So here are just a few things.
Right. Thank you, Michelle, for highlighting these very critical 3 points. Alexander, on to you.
No, I think you asked 25, 26. I think we will go from knowing to doing. I think there's a lot of kind of talk and awareness going on, and I think we will move more into execution, whether we like it or not. And if you haven't started doing knowing, I think you will have some catch up to do. And if you have started on the doing part, you're probably on the right path. I think we'll see continued hype of AI as a buzzword, where to me it's increasingly difficult to understand, are we talking about AI, or are we just talking about an SAS, or are we talking about some ML or some analytics that we've done always? So I think, a bit sort of jokingly, I was in an appliance store the other day and it said that I could buy the new AI-powered vacuum cleaner. I do not see any difference between that and my previous vacuum cleaner. So yes, I think we'll see much more of that in 25 and 26. And then I think we will move into, and it's related to knowing to doing. As we are doing more, mistakes will be made. I'm 100% sure. And I saw this question, I think it was from Kishan, on how can AI tools predict employee turnover? Let me spin on that. You can do that. You can do analysis next to your next, to what is called your next leaver. Who is most likely to leave next? Data parameters are quite clear. They're quite easy to collect. But then what do you do? What do you do with that information if you know who's leaving next? And let it pull even further. If you know who's going to go on medical leave next, what do you do with that? You know, you move into a personal space, an intimate space. You obtain the information in ways that is not entirely clear for the employees. And I don't think we'll find the right sort of line of using the data and insight that we get. We will not be right 10 out of 10 times. So how do we learn from those mistakes, and how do we set sort of driving rules that everybody can agree and understand? And yeah, so I think that's my three. Knowing to doing, even more buzzwords around this, and making mistakes. I think that's 25 and 26 for me.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alexander, for your thoughts as well. Those were some of the great insights, and I hope our audience found it as relevant as I did. I certainly learned a lot from you. So the three key takeaways that I want to really highlight from our conversation today, and what insights came out in terms of the strategies for 2025, are: number one, AI implementation strategies focused on improving workforce productivity across the region. How to do that? Rethink how you define your productivity in the organization in context of AI, and the areas you really want to focus on to impact the top line. And B, prioritize business areas and roles that you think are most difficult to hire and work on those. Number two, capabilities and insights on raising HR effectiveness to deliver people-centric AI strategy that adds the most business value. How to do that? Leverage AI to increase personalization and help AI learn custom learning journeys for your employees. And B, leverage AI to change the mindset by learning more problem solving and critical thinking skills to help your organizations and employees future-proof your organization on the tech advancements. So that change mindset is very important. And number three, how to unpack the landscape of 2025, the advice for HR leaders from our speakers: availability and accessibility of quality data for AI to learn and work for you, not for you to learn and just learn AI and work for it. Adoption of AI tools customized to your organization and employee needs, and then really going from knowing to doing in 2025 by improving the speed of execution and quickly learning from mistakes in utilizing AI. I hope I've covered everything that we discussed today, Michelle and Alexander. Any last thoughts that you might have?
No, I think you captured it well. And from my side, thank you for inviting me. And yeah, I had fun.
Lovely. Thank you so much again, both of you, for this great session. And for our audience, the link to our SHRPA research will be presented in the comments. Feel free to download. I would encourage you to download the global report, not just the SCA report, to really delve deeper into our findings, insights, and solutions to some of your priorities in 2025. Thank you again, everyone, for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you all. See you.